Okay, so new year, new me. So we're gonna be coding kind of physics in C. I originally wrote the program in Python with Pygame, but I like hurting myself mentally, so we're gonna port this to C and see if we can make something out of it. Um, of course, title of the video, we're first gonna calculate physics of the sprite. So here we're just declaring the sprite as self. We're doing this because C does not have classes, they have structs. And since they don't have classes, they don't have this or self. It doesn't have this or self. So we have to basically pass that its sprite in order to calculate physics and modify the structure members. Um, how we calculate physics is that we increment x by the x velocity and y by the y velocity, but then we decrease the y velocity by the gravity of the sprite, so it has this nice little gravity effect. And here we're gonna calculate the physics of that ball, and we pass in the ball because that's the physics we're calculating for. And I go on a tangent here because the physics don't seem to work. They do, but little did I know that, of course, classic mistake. I just needed to change one value in order for it to work. Um, it was just that there was no gravity in that sprite. So once I realized we have gravity now, except it goes off screen. So how do we fix that? Um, Not that hard, really. I'm just moving here. I'm just moving the function to a different file so I don't clutter the main file. Here, where we keep the sprite between borders, we basically just check if it's inside the screen, and if it's near to go outside, we just push it back inside of sorts. If it hits the x borders, we're just gonna invert the x velocity. And after putting in the function, here is where we keep the ball within the borders. We call that function, and once we run it, there we go. We have a ball that's inside the border. But how do we actually check that it works? We know that we can give the sprite an x velocity of 1, for example, and here we go. It's kind of moving slow, I guess. So let's just give it like a 3, and there we go. It seems to be working, and yes, it works. It bounces back to the other side and everything. So what's next is that now that we have physics, what we can now implement is actually the mouse. So we're gonna get the mouse state, and here you can see that I'm checking documentation for getting the mouse state. Sorry for the blinding light. Here is where we check if mouse, the left click mouse is being pressed. Of course, since this is C, we don't really have a lot of abstraction. Well, Allegro, the graphics library, does provide us with nice abstraction, but unlike Pygame, we cannot have. Well, here actually, this part is where I kind of struggled with installing the mouse drivers, but there we go. Here is the problem though, in which the mouse printings keep are very they're very verbose. So as long as you keep the mouse held and you move around, it always updates, which we don't want. We only want two coordinates or four coordinates, two of which are for the start x of the cursor and the end x. So how can we fix that? Now here's where we declare the start x, the start y, and x and end y of the cursor. Uh, if the mouse is down, I wanted to return a break, but that doesn't work. If the mouse is not down, we make it true, and we put the start x and y to the current mouse and y. Here's where I check that, and we set the end x and the end y of the mouse there to setting the mouse down falls. Sorry. But we still have that problem of we have we're kind of getting there in the way that you can press the mouse down, but the mouse keeps showing. So with that being said, the solution works now. You cannot see it down the console, sorry. But it works. Now we have the start X, the start Y, and the end X and the end Y of the cursor. So now that we know where the cursor is, we can calculate the offset of the mouse in order to give the sprite the velocity and the Y velocity. So here is where we check if we have all of the 4 coordinates. We're just resetting them back to 0, so we have a clean slate. And here's where we calculate the mouse offset of the X and Y. C doesn't return multiple values, so that's why I'm making 2 separate functions. With Python you can return tuples, but C doesn't have tuples, so we're making 2 functions to compensate. After a bit of messing around with the functions and getting the offsets correctly, we return that offset, we change the parameters, and we go. And hey, it kinda works. See, we got it right, except that we don't have friction. So we implement friction by if the ball's x velocity is greater than 0, we just subtract 1, and if it's less, we do that. And we see that it kind of works, but the friction kind of goes in the air as well, which we don't want. So here is where I'm adding a variable in air where we see if the sprite is in the air or not. Of course, we make it true there. And that way, if the ball is not in the air, which means it's on the ground, it will do the friction. And we can set in air to true or false with a simple ternary operator, which is just like an if statement, where if the ball has a y velocity at all, which means it's moving in the y coordinate, we make it true because it's moving in the air, and else we make it false, which means we're on the ground. And it works now. Or, well, it works as well as I can make it. Of course, we still need to implement collision detection and actually drawing the lines so we can kind of focus all this, our movement. But the code is going to be on GitHub because why not? And yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned if you want to get notified of the next video.